Good evening and welcome to the Drive at 5 on intellectualradio.com/iHeartRadio station. I'm your host, Roman. We have a great show planned for you today, but forecast from our intellectualradio.com weather center today. On and off light rain throughout the day, chilly high 40 degrees tonight, cloudy with on and off rain showers, chilly high 36 degrees tomorrow, partly sunny and mild. High 49 degrees tomorrow night. Partly cloudy, turning chilly, high 35 degrees Wednesday. Showers on and off throughout the day, mild, high 46 degrees Thursday. Rain with a chance of a thunder shower. It's been a while since we heard that. Mild, high 60 degrees. Friday, sprinkles, breezy and chilly, high 45 degrees. Saturday, partly sunny, cold, high 34 degrees. Sunday, partly cold, high 39 degrees. The Drive at 5 is also part of the fabulous 5 at 5 on intellectualradio.com/iHeart radio station. Here's the rest of your lineup for Monday, starting at 10 a.m. Market Sky Radio Show, 11 a.m. Becoming Dateable, 4 p.m. One Sister to Another, Warriors Talk at 6 p.m., 7 p.m. Talking with Tone, 9 p.m. Chronicles of Rom, only on intellectualradio.com/iHeart radio station. Tonight, my guest is a justice running for justice of the Supreme Court, and she's a justice as well. You know?
That's right. I'm a justice on the Illinois Appellate Court.
Right. And she's running for Supreme Court. Please give a Drive at 5 welcome to the one and only Cynthia Cobbs. Welcome to the Drive.
Why, thank you, Roman. Thank you for inviting me. It's great to be here for the first time.
Yeah, hopefully it won't be your last.
Well, if this goes well, I'll come back.
Okay. Please give intellectualradio.com/iHeart radio station your background.
I am Cynthia Cobbs, and I am currently a justice on the Illinois Appellate Court. I am actually what you might call an Illinois transplant because I was born and raised in Maryland. I am the eighth born child of 9 to a Baptist pastor. My father was a Baptist pastor. He's now deceased. And my 95 years young mom, who is high school educated bride. And she continues to live in Maryland. And when my father passed away, she was really, really clear. She said, I'm not moving out and y'all not moving in. So she continues to live in the home where I was raised. I got all of my early education in the public schools in Maryland. I got my undergraduate degree in sociology from a historically Black college, Morgan State. I'm always proud to say that because I always want to promote HBCUs. And then I got my master's degree in clinical social work. That degree in clinical social work, working with children and families, led me into the Maryland courts and prompted my interest in law. So that's kind of like how I got to the law part. Now, there's a whole lot more after that, but if you need me to pause so we can breathe, I can do that too.
So, define appellate court. A lot of people don't know what appellate court stands for,
Sure.
the meaning of it, and how it goes in a court of law, because there is a process. Help us define that.
Well, first, I want to make sure that the listeners know that I'm speaking from a place of authority or a place of knowledge. I used to be the director of the Illinois courts, which meant that I worked with the Supreme Court in overseeing the court system. So in Illinois, which is not so dissimilar from other states, we have 3 levels of court system. So the first level is where you go to have the dispute decided in the first place. So if you have some issue with someone that you can't work out, you need a judge, you go to trial court, or we call it the circuit court. And here we're in Cook County, so we call it the Circuit Court of Cook County. If you lose in the circuit court, you think the judge committed an error or your attorney did the wrong thing, you get to appeal to the Illinois Appellate Court. So the Appellate Court is a reviewing court. And because we have one more court above that, the Supreme Court, we call the Appellate Court the Intermediate Reviewing Court. That is the court where every appeal is heard as a matter of right. You have the right to appeal if you're wronged, or if you believe the court erred below. So you just have to follow the rules. And generally it's 30 days from the time that the trial court judge entered a final order to appeal your case to the appellate court. And the appellate court, unlike the Supreme Court, must hear every appeal over which we have jurisdiction, which means generally every appeal that is timely filed.
It was brought to my attention that the Illinois Supreme Court has this rule that the whole state should follow. Judges And sometimes they don't necessarily. So I'll clarify that if you sentence, let's say you sentence me to 3 years in prison, and Roman, I sentence you for 3 years in prison. You don't have to give a reason why you sentenced me to 3 years in prison. And a lot of, I mean, when I talk to some people and people who listen to the show, they say, what is up with that?
I like that. What is up with that? So, in any sentencing decision, whether it's in the criminal context or in the civil context, the trial judge who gives that final ruling is not required by rule to state on record why he or she ruled the way that he or she did. Now, that said, generally for criminal cases, criminal decisions or sentencing decisions always are made within a sentencing range. And even though a judge may not have to state everything that he or she considered when they ruled, they absolutely have to be clear on the record that they considered aggravating factors and mitigating factors, because that's a part of the sentencing decision. They also
You said some key terms.
Okay,
Aggravating
aggravating
factor
and
and mitigating.
mitigating.
Define
Okay.
that.
So aggravating means all the things that should work against you getting a lesser sentence, and mitigating means all the good things that should support you getting, I mean, aggravating all the things that support you getting a higher sentence within the sentencing range. Mitigating are the good things. Say you had a personal reference. Your pastor came in. He would offer good things about you. Roman's a good guy. He's never done anything like this before, and he was taunted into doing it. And he's a dad, and he's been working. Those are mitigating. Those are the good things that would support a judge's decision to maybe give you the lower range of the sentencing. Aggravating is folks come in and they say that Roman, he's a bad dude. He's been in trouble 99 times before. Every time we've admonished him, he's come back before, and we just can't get Roman to do the right thing. Those are aggravating factors. Those are the things that support a judge's decision, maybe giving you a sentence in the higher range. So even though a judge isn't required to state every reason on the record, in point of fact, some judges do state it orally. And if you pull the report of proceedings in a criminal case, because there always is, you generally can hear what the judge decided or what the judge based his or her decision on. So it's not like there is absolutely nothing in the record, because more often than not, when a defendant who's been convicted raises an issue about the sentence, they have to support it with the record. So, and the judge has made comments from the bench. He may not write it, but he's made comments from the bench.
However, will that be a little bit harder for you to decide on an appeal, or?
I don't know that it would be harder, because the judge is talking pretty much throughout the trial. So there are things called opening and closing arguments, right, at the end of the trial. So the defense attorney is arguing all the reasons why my client should get a lesser sentence. The state, which is the prosecutorial arm, Kim Fox's arm, is arguing why this defendant should get a higher sentence. A judge is usually going to respond to those things. A judge is usually going to say in their sentencing, and it'll be on the record, these are the things that I've considered. It is very, very rare for a judge not to have made oral statements on the record. And it's not harder, because when you're on the reviewing court, you get the record. You have to get the record. That's the only thing that the reviewing court has before it are the briefs and the record of proceedings. All of the comments, all of the discussion, all of the evidence that's been entered on the record. In a civil case where we're talking about liability, it's usually money. Sometimes the judges will write why they ruled in a certain way that they did in a civil case. Not always, but a lot of times a judge will write in a civil case why they ruled in a particular way.
What inspired you to pursue Supreme Court?
So we talked about the 3 levels of court, and we talked about, or we should talk about, the work of the Illinois Supreme Court. We talked about the 3 levels, and I told you what the work is of the trial court, and I told you what the work is of the intermediate reviewing court, which is the appellate court. The Supreme Court is different. Every level of our court system does something different, right? So the Supreme Court now is our highest level of court. They have 2 roles. Both of their roles, like with every court, both of their roles are defined by the Constitution. And in the Constitution, you find that the court is mandated to dispose of those cases that it decides to accept on appeal, and some others, minor constitutional cases, and It is responsible to oversee, to supervise, to run the entire branch of government. So we're the third branch. The judiciary is the third branch. So the governor oversees the executive branch, the Speaker of the House and the President of the Senate oversee the legislative branch, and the Supreme Court oversees the judicial branch, the third branch of government. I've been the director of the Illinois courts, working closely with the Supreme Court in meeting that mandate to run the court system in the state of Illinois. I've also been that trial judge, and now I'm an appellate court judge. But I was also a senior judicial law clerk for the Supreme Court for 7.5 years. So I've done quite a bit of the work that the Supreme Court does. And I am excited to be running. There are no lawyers in my family, no judges in my family. And there are probably across the country, 13 African-American women who sit on state Supreme Courts. I would be the 14th. So not only do I bring the legal competence, but I also bring the administrative skill. And because I've done that work, I can add value to the Supreme Court's work immediately.
You brought up the different branches of government. I have a question. I asked this last week, so I wanted to just pick your brain about it. In Alabama, there was an execution of an African-American male. It's a different state and different laws, who allegedly shot and killed 3 police officers. However, evidence have shown that the male did not kill the officers. The Alabama Supreme Court, hours before he was supposed to be executed, ordered a stay. However, the governor overturned the Supreme Court decision. My question is, the state Supreme Court is the highest of the land. How can a governor overrule the Supreme Court?
So you have to go to Alabama first to get that.
I know.
Okay. But
so
you have to go to Alabama first.
I'm just curious because it's unheard of. And basically, this sets precedents over maybe another governor can do it.
So let's be real clear. First of all, I have to say this because any judge has to be clear that they can't comment on a case that is pending or may come before any court, no matter where it is, Alabama or even Illinois. We just can't. But I want to maybe help in thinking through the issue or thinking through issues like this. We have to understand what it is that the governor did, right? So that's a different branch of government. The governors typically have the right to grant clemency or pardon, right? So I'm not sure when you say the governor overturned it, the Alabama Supreme Court vacated the sentence?
They stayed.
They stayed it. And the governor said, no, he gets executed.
He gets executed, and they went ahead and executed.
We would need to look, or you would need to look, because I can't look. You would need to look specifically at what the constitutional authority is for the governor in criminal cases, as well as what the constitutional authority is for the Alabama Supreme Court. It is going to be Constitution and statute that's going to define the power for both those branches of government in any situation.
And that includes the state of Illinois.
No. We're not under Alabama's constitution.
No.
But you would need to. So to find out or to understand what the gubernatorial powers are with respect to criminal dispositions, or criminal dispositions, you would need to look at the Illinois Constitution. Does the Illinois Constitution grant the governor the authority to overrule a final disposition by the Supreme Court? That's where you would need to look. Now, I've never seen that in Illinois. I'm just being honest. I've never seen a case where the Supreme Court in Illinois vacated a sentence or acquitted someone and the governor did something else. I've only seen it where a criminal defendant has been convicted and is serving time. Let's just take, this is a federal case, but let's just take Governor Blagojevich, right? He was convicted and sentenced in the federal courts, and he served that time. And then the president had certain constitutional authority to grant clemency or to pardon him. It would be the same thing in Illinois. Our governor has certain power. Remember when we had the death penalty and we no longer have it? Remember the governor then granted clemency for all those individuals who were convicted or were sentenced to death because they vacated or they eliminated the death penalty in Illinois? You always have to look to statute. and to the Constitution to determine what is the power of the branch of government that we're looking at.
So, for African Americans who are listening, or let's say community leaders,
Mhm.
before they go out and they like, man, you did this brother wrong, they should what again?
So if you think somebody, and I'm not sure who, if you think the courts did the brother wrong, I'm using your language, then
Brother
look,
or sister?
or sister, that's there you
Okay,
go, because
okay.
sisters can get in the soup sometimes too, right?
Right.
So if you think the courts did something wrong, look at what your next steps are. So in Illinois, we have something called post-conviction relief. Even after an individual has been convicted and even sentenced, they have the right to raise any constitutional claims that they believe are appropriately decided by the trial court or to be appealed to the appellate court. So in criminal cases, there's post-conviction relief. If you think something went wrong in the trial court, right? You got convicted, shouldn't have been convicted. There were constitutional errors. My due process rights were violated. I didn't have effective assistance of counsel. My attorney didn't do everything that he or she was supposed to do. Post-conviction relief is available for criminal defendants. So, and then if you don't like how the trial judge decided the post-conviction, you have the right to appeal that. So we have levels that you can go up. They're all in statute. Post-conviction is a statutory thing. It's in the statute. And Constitution tells you how far you can go.
Now, given what's going on now regarding the coronavirus,
Mhm.
what the
Well,
you're trying to make me laugh.
and I'm doing a good job too because you were laughing.
Okay. What is the court system doing to keep inmates as well as people who is working in a court system safe?
So I'm not sure what the courts are doing to keep inmates safe with respect to the coronavirus. We might need to look to the sheriff's office for that,
Okay.
or we might need to look to the Illinois Department of Corrections for that. Those are under the executive branch. That's where you look. Remember, I said you got to look at what is the entity and then look to where does their power come from. So the Supreme Court would not issue an edict or a directive to the courts because to the jails or the prisons, because those are under the executive branch. So you need to look to that. What are they doing? What are the courts doing about the courts, right? Because
Right.
that's what the
Like
Supreme
the
Court has
judges,
authority over.
the
There you go.
jury, and
Right.
stuff like
There
that.
you go. So a couple days ago, maybe Friday, I learned that Chief Judge Evans was calling a special meeting of the circuit judges and that they anticipate not holding court for at least until early April in order to address the coronavirus. Now, I don't believe that the reviewing courts, the appellate court, has been on lockdown or is closed. Now, it's different in the appellate court than it is in the trial court. The trial court sees many, 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 many more litigants, individuals who come into that building than does the appellate court. And I'm not sure if the appellate court will ever close or if it's going to close. That's still open. But there is in existence what we call a COOP, or an emergency preparedness plan. So when I was the director of the courts, soon after 9/11, are you old enough to even remember 9/11, Roman?
I'm glad you asked that question, but yeah.
Okay, good, because you're a very youthful interviewer, so I wanted to be sure.
You just
What?
you're trying to bribe the host.
I'm trying to charm the host. So soon after 9/11, we realized that in the court system, we really did not have a plan. 9/11 was a wake-up call for everybody, right? People were scrambling in every state and at every level of government. So as the director of the courts, I thought it was important that we have a plan that would address a pandemic, that would address an epidemic, that would address any kind of tragedy or terrorism attack on the states. So we put a template together and required every circuit court in every county in the state, all of the appellate courts and the Supreme Court too, to have an emergency plan, something that we could relate to or that would govern how we manage courts and court users in the event of an emergency like the one at 9/11 and in the event of a pandemic or an epidemic. So for the circuit court, I am aware that at least in Cook County, Chief Judge Evans, who has the administrative authority in the circuit court, subordinate to the Supreme Court, but immediate, is closing the circuit courts, I think, beginning tomorrow, and until early April. So I think they're doing a clean sweep. I don't know if there's been evidence of a case of the virus found anywhere in the circuit court, but imagine there are so many users that come into our circuit courts daily. And in the circuit court of Cook County, we have not just the Daily Center, we have municipal divisions outside of the Daily Center. We have the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, and the sixth. So that's a lot of court users and a lot of individuals who are coming in and out, lawyers and children sometimes. So Chief Judge Evans, I think, has taken the right approach in order to make certain that there are measures to protect the public and court users.
For the last couple of shows, we discussed the sentencing disparities between blacks and whites. Blacks get higher sentences than any other ethnicity. Now there is word that African American judges are harsher on other African Americans than any other race. As Supreme Court Justice, how could we trust that you will be fair sentencing African Americans?
So let's be clear about what the Supreme Court does, because the Supreme Court does not sentence.
Mm.
By the time you're sentenced, you've already been to trial, and likely you've been before the reviewing court in the appellate court and had that sentence tested. And if you've lost at every level, then you've appealed to the Supreme Court. So here's what I think is an appropriate response, because the Supreme Court is not the court where evidence is weighed or where you hear aggravating and mitigating. You can determine at the Supreme Court whether there were errors committed at the trial court level, whether a defendant got a fair sentencing. You can certainly decide that. But here's the issue I think that relates, or the answer that relates more to disparity. There are steps that the Supreme Court can take, and I think has been taking, to make certain that judges are making proper sentencing decisions. So we talk a lot about implicit bias, not a new phrase, it's been around forever. So I serve as one of 6 trustees on the Supreme Court's College Board. We're bringing together now all of the justice partners, everybody who has something to do with a case that comes through our court system. We're bringing together judges, we're bringing together circuit court clerks, trial court administrators, probation officers, guardian ad litems, and we are requiring that we have comprehensive education for all of our justice partners, addressing things like implicit bias, addressing things like procedural fairness, to get to the root causes of why there is any disparate sentencing at all. So we probably are going to live with implicit bias for a long, long time. Who among us wants to admit that they're biased about anything? Not many of us. Would you admit that you don't like the shirt I'm wearing?
Well, since you mentioned it, no, I'm just.
John, see, you brought your own sense of levity. So on the Supreme Court, I would ensure that we have continuing education to train our judges, and to make certain that they are trained to understand and recognize implicit bias. But I want to talk about one other thing. And again, I go back to when I was the director of the Illinois courts. I believe, even as a director and now, that sentencing decisions should be evidence-based. So we should look at all of the evidence. That means everything that impacts a defendant's life. Let's look at the upbringing. Let's look at mitigating factors. Let's look at aggravating factors. Let's look at the offense. Let's look at the likelihood of reoffending. Let's take all of those factors together and look at them collectively to determine what is the best sentencing decision for this particular individual. So if it's a nonviolent offense, let's not sentence them as though they were ex-murderers. Let's look at all of the evidence. Let's look at whether they've offended before. Let's look at whether or not there really is some opportunity to rehabilitate. So evidence-based sentencing, I still think, is a good approach. I think the use of assessment tools, when I was director, we used the LSRI, which is an adult assessment tool, to help judges make decisions about adult offenders and what sentencing ranges were appropriate. That's evidence-based sentencing. So that, coupled with education, I think are better or good approaches to making certain that we eliminate disparity in sentencing.
A lot of people mention diversity class.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's say you're a Supreme Court justice.
Let's say that. Let's say it again. Let's say it again.
Okay. And let's say, you make certain rules and procedures and stuff that
Judges
other court judges should follow.
Sure.
would you be open to, like, let's say you get elected to a sub-circuit judge or an appellate court judge or something like that? After you get elected, you are required to take a diversity class to at
Who told you that?
the no.
Oh,
I'm not saying
okay.
saying
Okay, Roman.
it's now. I'm just
Okay.
saying, like, if you're there now,
Hmm.
to say, you know what, if you get elected from this point forward, you are required to take diversity classes because there's a lot of disparities between whites and blacks. Is that a good measure to kind of like eliminate? No, you cannot eliminate, to curb some of the,
Diminish.
yeah.
So I think we're calling the same thing just by different terms. So when I talk about implicit bias and I talk about ethics, all of those things, and procedural fairness, all of those things I think are incorporated in what I am characterizing as implicit bias. So diversity class, that's a class in, recognize your own biases. And what can we do about those to make certain that they are not negatively impacting individuals who come? So I would absolutely always advocate for what you're calling diversity, because I'm calling implicit bias. Every 2 years, every judge in the state of Illinois is required to complete 30 hours of education training, continuing education. And for as many years as I can remember, implicit bias has been one of those courses that's been available. Ethics has been a course that's been available. We've taught evidence-based sentencing in our judicial education courses. So yes, I would absolutely continue to advocate that because I think it's important. And we're always getting new judges. So even though if you've been sitting for 20 years, you might have had the course. But if you're a new judge coming on, say you've been on for 5 years, we have to always offer those. And we'll always have to educate for as long as we perceive that there's a
But
problem.
you're saying offer, it should be required, you think?
Well, you are required right now to complete a certain number of hours of ethics training. And in ethics training, there is implicit bias. So every 2 years, and it's going on now, although the Supreme Court recently postponed the April session of education conference, every 2 years you are required as a judge. It's not discretionary. You're required to sit for, I think, at least 12 hours of ethics as a part of your 30 hours.
People say the law is not perfect.
It's
How-
not.
However, it works. African Americans say the law applies and it's more favored towards whites instead of blacks. As a justice of the court and an African American woman, seeing the law in a justice system inside and out, how you see the law in the Constitution working for African Americans?
I don't think the Constitution, well, let me say it this way. The Constitution is colorblind. The Constitution has principles and concepts. What happens is you have humans who are interpreting and applying the statutes in the Constitution. So I don't think the Constitution that grants everybody due process or the Constitution that grants everybody equal protection, those words have meaning and should have meaning for everyone. They're not, here's equal protection for African Americans, here's equal protection for white people. It's just equal protection. It's what we as humans do with those concepts and principles. So it's not that they're working in any particular way. It's what we as humans do with them in construing them and applying them to facts in particular cases.
You're on the campaign trail.
I am. I am.
You've been,
Tuesday's almost here. It's
yeah,
tomorrow.
yeah, right. And I just want to ask this question. What sets you aside from your opponents?
So there are 7 of us. I'm the only African American woman, but that's not what sets me apart. It makes me different from the other opponents. I'm the only African American woman. So remember, we talked a little bit about the work of the Supreme Court. The work of the Supreme Court is twofold. They have discretion to decide appeals that are appealed to them, cases that are appealed to them, but they also oversee and supervise the entire court system. No other candidate has done that. So for 9.5 years, I was the director of the Illinois courts, working with the Supreme Court in running the court system, managing the Supreme Court's budget, overseeing the delivery of probation services, designing and delivering continuing education for judges, administering Supreme Court rules. I've done all of that work. No other candidate has clerked for a Supreme Court justice. I clerked for Justice Charles Freeman for 7.5 years. And as the senior judicial law clerk, I was involved in reviewing every case that was assigned to Justice Freeman for disposition. And as law clerks, you don't just review them, you review them for the evidence, you read the record, you do the research, you do the analysis, and you draft an opinion. As a senior clerk, I also reviewed every motion that was presented to Justice Freeman, whether it was routine or complex. I reviewed those motions and made recommendations to the justice on the disposition. No other candidate brings that range of experience. I've been a trial court judge just like my other opponents, except for Mr. Epstein, and I am now an appellate court judge, which is like most of us who are running. But the thing that sets me apart is the work that I was able and privileged to do in working for the Supreme Court.
Now, please give IntellectualRadio.com/iHeartRadio station where they can get in contact with you, your punch number, and
why, thank you, Roman. I wondered if we were going to get to that today. You've asked some really tough questions, and that's probably the easiest one you've asked. Thank you. Okay. So I have a website, and I would encourage anybody who is voting, and even if you're not voting, because I want you to always understand and know your judges, my website is www.justicecobbs.org, www.justicecobbs.org. Now, my punch number, 164. So before you walk out the door, punch 164. That's my punch number, 164. Did you like that?
Yeah, I like
it.
See,
you like that, right?
Yeah,
door like 4, 164, door, right. Roman's having a good time.
Well, don't be a stranger to the Drive at 5.
Okay.
I mean, we will invite you again.
I hope you will.
Yeah, we will.
And I'll come.
Okay. Because earlier you said depends on the questions. So.
You were good. You were good.
Well, thank you so much.
Very welcome.
So one more time, give your punch number.
So one more time, this is Cynthia Cobbs, and my punch number is 164. Don't walk out the door unless you've punched 164.
Okay, and also we will post your on IntellectualRadio.com so people can see for themselves.
I hope so.
Okay, we'll do. Okay. When we come back on the Drive at 5 on IntellectualRadio.com/iHeartRadio station, why go to the store battling crowds and long lines, taking a chance probably of seeing empty shelves? Well, the Drive at 5 have an answer for you that will deliver your toiletries to your homes. And guess what? They are Black owned and operated products. To explain, we have Yashua, Hakim, Aton coming up next on the Drive at 5. And we're back on the Drive at 5 on IntellectualRadio.com/iHeartRadio station. My next guest is an entrepreneur and Black owned and operated products distributor. In case you don't know, we have Black owned and operated toiletries like tissue and dishwashing detergent and also fabric softener. To give us more details, please give a drive at 5. Welcome to Yashua Hakim Aton. Welcome to the drive, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome.
Please give intellectualradio.com/iHeart radio station your background.
Well, good evening, everyone. How you doing? My name is Brother Yashua Hakim Aton. I am the youth minister of the Temple of Mercy Association under the leadership and guidance of Minister Rahim Kased Aton, a.k.a. the Sax Preacher. And what I do in the community is I am an entrepreneur, trainer, activist. And what I do is I teach young people, 18 to 30, how to go into business for themselves. I teach entrepreneurship. I teach sales training. And one of the best ways to do that, I feel, is to connect to Black-owned companies who manufacture products that are what we call consumable products that most of us need on a daily basis. And so I use these companies and products in order to achieve that goal of teaching entrepreneurship, sales, and going into business for yourself. So it's an honor to be able to help create jobs in our community, because with all of the things that's going on in our community, I believe that if you give our youth an opportunity to make some money, to stay off the street and stay out of trouble, I think they'll choose the money. And as they always like to say, violence needs a job. And so these are one of the means and ways that we use in the Temple of Mercy Association to employ our youth and put them to work.
What inspired you to enter into the Black products distribution business?
Some 15 years ago, I was a member of a company called Mata. Mata was a company that produced Black-owned products. They only sold products that were manufactured and distributed by us. They had their own laundry detergent. They had about 17, 18 other different products that they had. And what they were trying to do in their mission was to create an alternative channel of distribution. Because oftentimes you have Black manufacturers who can make good products, but don't necessarily have the means to put their products in different and other distributions, and they were being discriminated against. And he, being one of the top leaders of Amway at the time, decided that he was going to create his own product, and he wanted to introduce it to Amway to go into the product line. And even though he was one of their top earners, even though he was responsible for some 30% of their growth, they just wouldn't allow him to put his own product in the distribution. So he had to go into his own distribution channel to be able to accomplish that. And he became the unfortunate victim of the sniper incident back in 2008, where he was killed while he was pumping gas at the gas station just recently after securing $1 billion deal to distribute granola nutmeg oil here in the States, almost exclusively.
That was a Black-owned and operated
And that
product.
was a Black-owned and operated product. And so it just kind of inspired me to want to continue that effort of creating a job, because I believe, as Dr. Webb Evans used to say, the founder of the United Black American Progress Association, he said, it's a shame that our children should have to grow up and look to somebody else other than us to get them a job. You know, and so me being a father of 10, job creation is very important when you're talking about having large families, and you're talking about being a community activist, and you're talking about the lives and dealing with young people. You have to show them an opportunity to make money. And I just believe most of our young people are involved in the world's greatest business. Roman, I just don't think they got the right product. And so I believe if we can change the product that they're trying to distribute and sell on our corners like they've been doing, then I think we can make a better impact in our community versus locking everybody up and putting them in jail for some economic condition that they happen to find themselves in.
A lot of people like myself do not know that there are Black toiletry products out there. They used to go to the corner store, or they go to Pete's or Tony's or Jules, Osco, and they don't see Black-owned detergent. They don't see Black-owned toiletries. How you get the information out there to the Black community about Black toiletry products?
Well, Roman, one of the goals is something that we call one church, one channel. And so Trinity Church of Christ up on 95th Street has been gracious enough to allow us to put the detergent inside of the store of the church. And so that being one of our biggest customers here in Chicago allows us that type of exposure. And so we're looking to open up and put these products into other various different churches. We want to put it in Black-owned stores. We want to put it in on the blocks through the block club so that we can create all the other channels of distribution that we need, but also be in a position to employ our young people to be the ones to distribute, to sell, to market, and promote these products. And we also, our major goal right now is looking to build a platform where we can go on an app and be able to locate every Black-owned business in our particular different zip codes. And we'll be able to have some type of fulfillment or delivery system that will allow us to deliver those products, Roman, straight to the consumer so they don't have to go out and look for them. So we want to be the DoorDash, the Uber Eats, the Grubhub of Black-owned products and services in our own community so we can kind of control the channel of distribution. And then we can take those profits and give our young people jobs. We can fund our different organizations. The churches can stop having 3 and 4 collections because now we'll have an alternative stream of income that's coming in that we can do better for ourselves. And so that's what, one of our major goals is right now, Roman.
Since the coronavirus, toiletries are in high demand and stores are price gouging from a case of water to tissues. People are paying $80 to $100 for tissues.
Yes.
Right now, and $20 for one case of water. A corner store is charging $20 for one case of water. They're charging $80, according to your Facebook page, on the South Side.
For 36 rolls of tissue.
For That's 36, right. $80.
Yes.
Now, my question, you say the Black community should not worry about going to these stores. They should contact you because you will deliver to their homes. Explain that to us. You said you wanted to be the Grubhub of toiletry products and Black-owned products, but the information is not to the masses.
Correct. And at this time, Roland, we're at what we call a ground floor opportunity. So we're in contact with a few different stores. One of the first stores that were able to take our toiletries in was the Solo Beauty Supply, located over on 8158 South on Cottage Grove. So you can go there and pick up the products, the laundry detergent, as well as the tissue. We welcome other Black-owned businesses to be part of that distribution effort in our communities. One of the major things that we believe will solve some of the challenges if we go back to block club organizing. On the block is where most of these things happen. If we can have block clubs adopt our products and create this channel of distribution just within their blocks and take some of the young people that they probably fussing at, that's walking in their grass right now, that's walking down their block, dropping paper in front of their house. And if we can employ those young people to just deliver those products and be able to earn an income, then we can build the awareness that we need. We can build the distribution that is necessary in order for us to accomplish all of the goals that we have. One thing that we don't have as a people, Roman, is our own channel of distribution. Right now, Amazon has the largest platform for the distribution of products, goods, and services in the world. And it's one of the reasons why you see most of the major retailers in our communities closing their stores, because you can't compete with somebody who doesn't have as much overhead because they're doing delivery versus you have to have a staff and people there to ring it up and all of those different things and insurances and things. And so that model is becoming the wave of the future. Uber has a platform that connects people that need rides to drivers. We want a platform that's going to connect our consumable spending, which last year I believe was $1.3 trillion. We need some of that $1.3 trillion redirected back to Black-owned products so that we can take that income and create our own opportunities, employ our own people, and be able to have some things that will sustain some of the businesses in our community. And so all of this price gouging is just totally unnecessary. I went to a couple of protests at a few stores, and, it's just heartbreaking, the inferiority of the product that they selling. I mean, they're not even selling the good tissue, the 36 roll. They selling the generic tissue, bragging about 4 rolls of tissue for $3. Yeah, 4 rolls of tissue with 100 sheets. I didn't even know they made tissue with 100 sheets.
But even the 4 rolls are like $15 on a corner store right now.
Yeah. And they're selling Scott tissue for $3 a roll, 2 for $5, when it used to be 89 cents, 79 cents, $1. And so, it's no need to price gouge the people, but it just another example of what we always say is that there is money in our community. We just have to take the money that we do have in our community and redirect it back to us.
If someone stay on the west side or western suburbs, how they can get stores or other Black-owned products put in these Black-owned and operated stores on the shelf?
Well, one of the things that we're asking people to do is to identify the Black-owned business that's in your community already, that's already operating, that we can partner with that place, and then we can make that place the distribution for those goods and services in your community.
But it's hard to identify those Black-owned stores because it's sometimes in some communities is very little.
That's true. And if it's not a store, then I know we have enough Black-owned churches in our communities. That's why we said the one church, one channel. The church can be the distribution for the tissue and the detergent products. We can deliver the products to the church. The church can employ somebody from their congregation to be able to have that little store in the corner or in the lobby or something, and then they can distribute those products just like they do at Trinity. So there really is no excuse about finding a Black-owned distribution. And if it's not one, then we have to be creative enough to create one. It could be the block club on your block. Most of the tissue that we're distributing right now is being distributed in Inglewood right out of my home. And so I created that opportunity in an area that is known as Laron City, which is infamous and known for drug dealing and gang banging and different things like that. And so I wanted to be able to come into that community and show the young people, but there are more things that you can sell and distribute and make money off of in our community than drugs. And so I sit there in that community as an example to them, to show them that you can be a business owner, that you can be out here and selling and distributing and making money, but you don't have to sell a product that's going to kill and cause violence and things in your community. So we just have to be creative. And I know with the churches that we got, it's 3 and 4 on every block. I know with the block clubs that we have, we can do that. I know with the senior citizen homes, we can do that. There's more than enough ways for us to distribute and get the word out there. And if it's not a Black-owned business in your community, then you need to create one either on your block or ask your pastor to do one at the church. Because the church should be open more than just on Sunday. So Monday through Friday, we need to be opening up the church and distributing these Black-owned products, having classes on entrepreneurship, having classes on going into business for yourself.
And you provide those as well.
And we provide those as well. So if you want someone to come out to your organization and you want us to do that, then we'll be more than happy to use our resources to come and educate your youth on how to do that.
You brought some products. Tell us about this. A product called Truth. It's a detergent.
The Truth is a detergent. It's an all natural plant-based laundry detergent, which means it has no chemicals, no phosphorus, no parabens in it. And those things typically in most products that we used to buy is what creates the eczema that our children have, is what creates the allergies that we have, because a lot of these chemicals that we are consuming in our products, we are allergic to. And so if you use a plant-based all natural detergent, it will give you the benefit of your children not having eczema, not having these allergies and allergic reactions to all of the chemicals that's in the detergent. It's also a halal product, which means that there aren't any animal products at all in it. So it's very environmental friendly. It's very safe. It's very high efficient. So for the high efficiency machines that you have, it's not going to cause a lot of wear and tear on your machines. And you don't need a lot of detergent to clean your clothes. That's one of the most important things. We've been taught that the more suds that it create, the better that it's doing. And that's not always necessarily the case. And then we wonder why we can't get rid of the children's eczema. So we got the plant-based fabric softener, which has an all-natural lavender scent in it, which lavender is one of those scents that calms you down, that helps you to relax and different things. And so they're all essential products that are conducive to our health and not just giving us the benefit of washing our clothes, but being safe for us and environmental friendly. And that's rolling one of the most important things.
Tissue as well. Explain that. Black-owned. It's called
Freedom.
And I thought of a tagline: Freedom. One wipe will set you free.
Absolutely. We always like to say we cleaning up crime one wipe at a time, because people don't understand how important it is when you provide opportunities for people when there are no opportunities. One of the things that this toilet paper that I'm most proud about is that this toilet paper is manufactured and produced in Baltimore, Maryland by a gentleman named Kamos Muhammad, who is a member of the Nation of Islam. He's also a member of the UNIA, Marcus Garvey's movement. And being a student of Minister Raheem Kassed Aton from the Toma Nation, aka the Sax Preacher, we believe and know that you can't establish an economic base in your community without observing some of the blueprints of those successful people that came before us. And so Marcus Garvey and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad being two of the forerunners of what we like to call the Do for Self movement, the freedom tissue is just an extension of the blueprint that they left. The true detergent is just an extension of what they left. And it's so fitting.
But you don't, sorry to interrupt for time's sake. You don't only sell these two products. What other products is it?
Primarily, these are the only two products we sell, but we have a relationship with Sister Cassiopeia Sledge, the co-founder of the Black Mall, and the Black Mall has over 200 products that are manufactured and distributed by Black people. And so if you want the plethora of what is considered Black Mecca, you want to connect yourself to Cassiopeia Sledge of the Black Mall. My primary goal with the laundry detergent and the tissue is to help build that distribution and that customer base and the platform so that we can expand what the Black Mall is doing to other communities in our area. Right now, they're located on 79th and Eberhard over on the South Chatham side of town. And so we just want to take that blueprint and that model, make it digital where you can access these goods and services through your cell phones, through your computers, through your tablets, and be able to duplicate what she is doing over there on 79th Street.
Okay, so please give Intellectual Radio where they can get in contact with you.
Oh, yes, sir. You can reach me. My number is 773-641-8192. You can visit us on our website. It's Wholesale Direct, the number 2YOU.com. Again, that's Wholesale Direct, the number 2YOU, all one word, .com. And you can find out more about us. You can reach out to us and we can help build our communities one wipe at a time and one wash at a time.
And it will set you free.
And it will set you free.
All right. So we wanted to let you know that courtesy of Earl Winfrey and Intellectual Radio, we have a sister Facebook page, which I've already introduced you to, called Black Products and Black Services. You can advertise 24/7, 365 days out of a year for free anytime you want to post it up and let the masses know.
All right. Sounds great.
All right. Thank you. Don't be a stranger. Don't be a stranger to the Drive at 5. That's going to do it for us on the Drive at 5 on IntellectualRadio.com. Thanks to Earl Winfrey, our executive producer. Wonder who's behind the scenes. Have a good week, everyone.